Ever since institutional capital came into our space over 10 years ago, it's kind of turned into an apples and oranges situation. And a mistake that we see a lot of lenders make is trying to compete on price and leverage with the institutions. We're going to give you a better way to do it right now.
Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your host from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey, real quick before we get started here, if you've been following this podcast for a while and you are interested in looking into upcoming live and virtual events, go check out hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events, schedule time to talk to our team. All right. So this is a common, when we have our meetings, this comes up frequently, like trying to compete with Kiavi or Longhorn or RCN or one of those big national institutional lenders. And the reason why that's a bad idea, because since that capital has been in this space, they've been doing some wild stuff, especially more recently. Now, why do they do so much wild stuff? They have to deploy hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars to make their business work. Some of them aren't even profitable. They're just scaling to maybe exit at some point. And that makes them do some wild stuff. One is get really, really cheap, single digit interest rates, maybe a point or two on fix and flip loans, for example. Not really talking about DSCR so much in this example. They start going higher and higher to compete with each other on leverage. Oh, we're at 90. Oh, we're lending up to 92.5 loan to cost. Oh, we're lending up to 95. We're at 100. And they just keep going up and up and up the ladder. It's absolutely crazy for anybody who is in a position where they're responsible for their capital, where they're responsible for losses. I don't know how it works behind the scenes of institutional money and secondary markets and all of that stuff, securitization, selling it off, who's responsible for what. I mean, I've asked some industry people about it, but like, it just doesn't seem like anyone at all is responsible for losses. And if that's the case, do whatever guidelines you want. Do 200 LTV. Who cares if it's not your responsibility at the end of the day? But unfortunately, the mistake that some private lenders who are responsible for their capital, like us and the people in our mastermind group, they make the mistake of thinking they can or should compete on terms and leverage with those other folks.
Yeah, so I feel like it's a shame that we keep having to rant about this topic because, like, most people should get it in their heads of like, it's apples and oranges. We're not competing versus, Kiavi's a new name now, but we're not competing with the institutional capital. It's not what we do. It's apples and oranges. Let's go through a few stories as well that I think are interesting that people can resonate. But we learned this kind of a long time ago, originally from Russell Brunson when we were in his mastermind group. And then I know Hermosi talks about this on his podcast all the time. You're either the most expensive or you're the cheapest. Like, you die in the middle, right? So you either have to be the most expensive product and provide a extremely high quality service and provide value in other ways to your clients, right? Like, what are things that we provide value to our clients? We're a locally based company that knows the area. We control all our own money and make all the rules. We can close very, very, very quickly because we're lending our own money. And we can drop everything. If a deal has to close immediately, all hands on deck, we can get this closed. And we're easy to work with, right? There's endless ones. But like, that's why we demand a higher price point for our product and for our services. Now, is everybody going to buy into that? No, we're not trying to capture 100% of the market share. Everybody thinks so many lenders think that they need to capture every damn loan in the market, every deal, everybody that's applying. They think everybody's your customer. It's not. It's not. The challenging part, and I mean, we learned this 20 years ago, is most people are not cut out to be private lenders or hard money lenders because they can't wear the two hats. They can wear one of two hats. The first hat is you have to be, a salesperson and a marketer, and you have to be able to get lots of opportunities and talk to lots of people and be able to sell. But you also have to, be disciplined and be a capital investor, and you're lending your own money and money that you control. And back in the day, so many people just couldn't handle that, right? Like it was two spectrums, and I remember it. You had people that had mortgage experience that were really good salespeople, and they came from the mortgage side, but they didn't have the wherewithal to underwrite. And then you had the commercial bankers and their mindset was, oh, I control all the capital, I make all the rules. And that's not the answer either. And you've got to understand that you have to fall kind of in between there. You got to be sales and you have to, figure out ways to generate business, but on the same time, you got to protect your capital. And we're not a commodity. An institutional lender is a commodity. It is a race to the bottom. Every day, they're going to try to inch their way to try to lend out slightly cheaper so they can get more market share and slightly higher leverage so they can get market share. We're not doing that. We want to make the most money that we can on this transactions, um, and we want to have the lowest leverage we can. Right? That's a good investment to have the safest possible deals. Now I get it. Like, I'm not saying trying to be super greedy and push commercial usury laws in that point. My point is we have a set price of what we want to lend out, which we believe is a fair price, and we don't just make up some fake LTVs. Like, we have experience with defaults. We have defaults on our books. We've had defaults over the last 20 years. We know what LTVs and what quality borrowers we need to have in our portfolio in order to prevent loss and to have a clean portfolio, right? Because if not, the amount of marketing that we do in our marketing machine and the amount of, you know, opportunities, we could do significantly more volume if we knew that our bottom line would benefit from that, and we knew that we wouldn't have tons of headaches on our books. There's a reason we have there's a there, there's a reason why we have everything set up the way we do.
Yeah, let's drill down a little bit more on like how to win in this situation, because for anyone watching or listening now, like, take this as good news. Not like, I think people get a little upset that they think that they can't compete with those type of lenders that we're talking about. But the reality is they have to do 300 loans this month and you want to do 10. So you can afford to underwrite better, to do different things, to price it how you want. You don't have to put out 300 loans this month. It's great. It's great news. So how do we win? So one is the stuff that Jason said before. How can we actually do this job better than them in terms of like knowing the market, closing more quickly? We don't need appraisals. We do our own valuations. Like, we just transactionally, we win by being better in those things. And then two, relationships. And this, especially in an AI world, relationships are going to become more and more important because people are always going to want to work with people. And, we could be better. Admittedly, we could be better at this at HMB than we are, of really spending time on those borrower relationships to have a long-term situation where we're lending to them for a long time. We know a lot about their business, like smart people in this way. And I know some people like this. We could be better at it. I'm not going to lie. They do a good job of becoming friends with their business associates. That's a smart thing to do. And next is marketing. We need to bring in a lot of leads. We need to spend time on our paid traffic campaigns, on making content, sending email broadcasts so that we can be on our SEO and on-site web stuff so that we can bring in a lot of leads, way more leads, many, many, many more leads than we actually need to close deals, right? Like, we're not going to close, 50% of them or anything like that. It's going to be a small percentage because we're quoting the way we want. We're doing loan terms that aren't going to lose money, knock on wood, and we'll leave the craziness for the RCNs and those people. Go ahead and do the craziest ass loans that you want, because another reality is that we still lend to the same people as them, only they'll lend to them 20 times a year, and we'll get 2 or 3 deals a year from that borrower when the institutional stuff doesn't work in that given situation. It's fine. We lend to the same people. We just don't have to do 300 loans this month. At HMB, if we're doing 15 or 20, we're in a good spot. And so I would take this as some good news, not like getting frustrated about, oh, well, does 100% financing, so I have to do 100% financing, because you can't. If you're responsible for the money, you're going to lose your shirt if you get anywhere near 100% financing. And I know some people don't want to hear that because their borrowers are used to it. They think it's the industry norm, but it's
It's going to happen.
it's just a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
anytime, and you see this in different aspects of real estate lending over the years because we've been in different stuff. We've been in commercial, we've been in banking, been in conventional mortgage. Anytime, well, first of all, you never see commercial get to 100% financing. This is just a residential thing. Um, Anytime a market's hot and the finance guys are pushing it and they're starting to creep up towards 100, something corrects and those LTVs drop back down. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they're like, oh, I can't do that program anymore. We got to ratchet it back down to 85, ARV, something like that. Just kind of making up numbers here. But that same thing happens with market cycles. Anytime it gets up near 100, something corrects and then it bounces back down. And so when that happens, you don't want to be staring at big losses. This business model isn't really made unless you're really disciplined about loan loss reserves. We have $2 million set aside of our capital or investor capital that is there very specifically to plug a hole to make up for a loss when we lose money on a deal because the leverage is too high. And I don't think many lenders do that. I don't think they're in that position like a bank does with loan loss reserves, but they also do that because they're required by regulators. In our industry, that's not the case. So interesting position to be in. And it's important that we talk about this on the podcast and the mastermind meetings that we have, because ultimately, like one of our biggest motivations in why we even started the mastermind to begin with was to help other lenders to not lose money. You're doing some crazy stuff. So
Yeah.
let's try to fix that together. And so none of us lose money in this business because we're not supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this story before in private lending, other real estate investment stuff, and other types of businesses, and the path that is you make a bunch of money for a decade or when times are good, and then it fails, and then it's bankrupt time, and losing capital, losing investor capital, going out of business. It's like, if that's the business model, the shaky model you wanna follow, so be it. Not for us. I mean, we're we've been building this over the last 20 years and will continue to for, the wealth cycle, and in essence, having an investment vehicle. This is an investment vehicle, first and foremost. This is and so, like, I'm using the term investment first, right? These are investments. These are good deals that we're trying to lend on a regular basis. This isn't just, a short-term cash flow hit in a cash flow bucket. We're trying to have a good longevity of ongoing good deals that can be out there forever, and you have the right fundamentals to do that. And I'm not saying that it's easy. It's hard. Listen, it's not fun to go to meetup groups or do direct mail campaigns and spend money on Google AdWords and spend a lot, and talk to, hundreds of people and not convert any of them, right? Because, oh, well, you're competing with this person and this person, and this person. We're okay with that. We're comfortable with that. And, like, listen, there's loan officers in our operations that we have to talk off a ledge to here and there, right? Because they're like, oh, maybe we should try this. We can compete. I'm like, we're not competing with these institutional lenders. That's not something that we're doing. So we overcome that by doing marketing, having more deal flow. That's what we do. There's only real two strategies you can have. You can market and be good at and work to be good at sales and conversion and find good opportunities over and over and over to charge the rates and the terms that you want. Or again, you can be a commodity and undercut the market and provide high leverage and cheap terms and roll the dice and see how that works out, right? It's one or the other. You figure it out. Um, and another I don't even know if I want to share this story, but another story of a lender that and I was talking to recently. He's very familiar with a certain institutional capital source, and they've been growing their business based on the way that this institutional capital lender uh does deals. Same terms as them, same leverage as them. This company is a fund themselves. So the lender that we know is a fund. Has a lot of different buckets, institutional stuff and stuff like that. This institutional lender, he wants to mimic their model off theirs just because they've been in business for a long period of time. So he's like, well, this has worked for them. They've been in business for 10 years. They're doing really well. They have a huge team. They do a lot of deals. We should just copy our fund off them because they do it. Why shouldn't we do it? Anyways, scratch my head and be like, yeah, I just don't see that working out that well, but do what you want.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're very well versed and like, knowledgeable about the behind the scenes finances of a company that's doing all that, then maybe you can, make that call. But if you're not knowledgeable about specifically what losses look like, how they absorb them, when they have to buy back loans from the secondary market, all of that, if you're not well versed in that side of the business, then frankly, you just can't do the terms that they do safely. Um, yeah, it's wild too. Something I was thinking about. Nobody says this publicly, but I wonder if any of those shops actually discuss the fact internally that they're doing it as like a 10-year cash grab, 5-year cash grab. Like
which is fine. If that's what the business
nobody says it
is.
though. Nobody has it. I'd be curious to know if they would. I'm sure some people think like
Well, because that's not what they believe it is.
some of them might. I mean, that's why I
They
don't know. I was just kind of like
Yeah, I mean, here
thinking out
here's the
loud.
deal.
Like,
That this isn't a bash of anybody's model either. This is just what's your identity? This is an identity thing. Like, if we don't want to be in the mortgage brokering space or in the mortgage company space. Did that 20 plus years ago. That's what that is. Raising capital, lending money out, or I'm sorry, getting capital sources, lending it out based on their criteria. If that's the business model you want to be, that's fine. But what I think the challenge is you're like, oh yeah, we want to model the institutional capital sources, but we don't want to do it with institutional capital because that's a pain in the neck to get that type of capital. We want to go raise our own money and do it that way, but then follow the same thing. So you just got to pick what you want to do. Like if you want to start a lending company and be collateralized by institutional capital, um, or be funded by institutional capital, by all means do it. I'm not talking you out of that. I just mean that you got to understand all the different sides of things. And I think people are mixing and matching, and they're trying to use their own capital or capital that they control and compete with companies that have capital that doesn't necessarily belong to them.
all right, everyone, that is the pod for today. Hope you got some value from this episode. If you ever thought about joining us for a live event, go check out hardmoneymastermind.com. Click on live event, talk to our team. We hope to meet you in person, and we'll see you here next time on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us on this Private Lenders Podcast episode. Please note that opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, financial, and accounting professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we would appreciate it if you could spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 community for all private and hard money lenders.